Africa remains on the UK's red list for now, and we're still awaiting a decision by EU health ministers on travel restrictions. The bans were implemented due to the Omicron variant. Once detected in South Africa, scientists here sequenced it and shared their findings with the WHO. Now, the variant, which is still being studied, has also been detected in both Europe and the UK. Let's get an update from our UK correspondent, Olly Barratt, live to us from London. Let's start, Olly, with the European Union health ministers discussing whether or not to lift or ease travel bans or restrictions to southern Africa. Any word yet on that?
No decisions yet, and I also don't think we should hold out a huge amount of hope that there is going to be some major decision coming from EU health ministers. They are discussing the situation around travel restrictions, but we don't expect them to come to some concerted position and suddenly ease those travel restrictions on southern African countries. Heading into the meeting, the German health minister Jens Spahn said we still don't know everything about Omicron, and he said consequently travel restrictions are important, so as he says, to keep the incidence of the new variant in Europe and Germany as low as possible. And I think that will be the position coming out of the meeting as well, whether or not that is indeed a wise position to be taking. I think that's the position that we're going to end up in at the end of this meeting in Brussels. The other thing briefly to say on that is that the European Union isn't able to set an overarching border policy for its member states. They take those decisions individually, and at this stage the German example is just one of countries at this point saying that they're going to keep those restrictions in place for now at least.
Yeah, so this meeting was also meant to address how the current vaccines are likely to respond to Omicron. Have scientists from any of these EU countries managed to come to any determination on that yet?
Well, they're sharing their most up-to-date information with each other, but I think it's fair to say there isn't a huge amount that they can glean from some of that data just yet. We've heard from the UK today. Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, told his cabinet that there are early signs that the Omicron variant is more transmissible than the Delta variant and variants that went before it, but said it's too early still to tell what kind of vaccine escape it may or may not have. And I think that will be the same data that the European health ministers are looking at as well. Indeed, the European Health Commissioner heading into the meeting said that one of her priorities was actually making sure that European populations were vaccinated enough, because there are a number of European Union member states which are really lagging behind their allies, and that's part of the reason that even before Omicron came along, new restrictions were being rolled out across Europe because of the spread, the rapid spread, and therefore hospitalisations and deaths were following of the Delta variant. And that's part of the reason there's so much concern now about Omicron, if indeed it is more transmissible.
And of course it is spreading in the UK with over 300 cases already confirmed. How are the numbers looking there and the rest of Europe?
Over 400 cases now confirmed in the UK. We've just had the latest numbers in over the last 24-hour period, so a jump of around 100 cases in just a day. And scientists are very clear here that those are just confirmed infections at this point, that the numbers are probably already into the thousands in the UK. And it's a similar picture in other parts of Europe with cases rising. The UK, much like South Africa, does more genomic sequencing than almost anywhere else on Earth, so it's likely that the UK knows about more cases than some of its European counterparts, but the variant is very much here in Europe and is spreading in a series of European countries. The data confirms that.
Yeah, and of course scientists will use that argument to say that travel restrictions actually don't work because the virus will spread regardless. So tomorrow will be a year since the UK vaccinated its first citizen. How far are you? What are those numbers looking like?
They are pretty high compared to some other parts of Europe and other parts of the world. The latest numbers show that the percentage of the population aged over 12 that's had one dose of a vaccine is at 89%. Both doses of a vaccine is at 81%. But also crucially now, potentially with Omicron spreading, 36.4% of the British population aged over the age of 12 has already had a booster shot as well. That is 20.9 million people have had a third shot already. Now, the UK government is trying to make sure that by the end of January, it's offered all adults a booster shot. It's going to be a difficult target for it to meet, but as I say, the UK government believes that given that it expects that Omicron will still react to the vaccines, even if the vaccine effectiveness does drop a little bit, that booster shot is going to be critical in making sure that even if Omicron spreads, it doesn't lead through into a massive spike in hospitalizations and fatalities.
All right, Olly, I've lost your audio, hoping we still can hear you though, but there's some contention in South Africa about a cartoon that's emerged in a Spanish newspaper. I'm going to ask our team to bring that up on screen. It's been described as racist and discriminatory. Any word from people, authorities or the science community about this?
It's certainly led to a huge amount of criticism here in Europe as well. The newspaper that published it has come in for a huge amount of criticism. It's apologised. The cartoonist involved has apologised as well. In the last 24 hours, we've been hearing from the WHO chief Tedros speaking about the cartoon as well. He has called it disgusting, and he says it pains him to see racism like this at a time when the world should be working together. So yes, it's controversial here in Europe, and as I say, the newspaper and the cartoonist responsible for it have apologised.
All right, our UK correspondent Olly Barratt on that story.
Yeah, and it's good to hear that there's an apology. We also were chatting about this earlier in the office that scientist Tulio de Oliveira here in South Africa also slamming it, absolutely furious. It really doesn't help anyone, and it's not even vaguely funny.
Yeah, no, it was